They turned their backs on you, didn't they? Walked away without hesitation. Left you standing there drowning in silence as if you never mattered. As if all the time, all the loyalty, all the sacrifices meant nothing. You remember that moment, don't you? The exact second when the world cracked beneath your feet. When the air felt heavier, when your heart learned what it meant to shatter in real time. You stood there, gripping onto nothing, trying to understand how the same hands that once held you with warmth could now be so cold. It wasn't just their absence that hurt. It was the realization that they never even looked back. You sat in that empty room, staring at the walls like they held answers. You retraced every step, every word, every mistake, trying to figure out what you did wrong. Maybe you were too much. Maybe you weren't enough. Maybe you loved too hard, cared too deep, believed too blindly. And so you began to shrink yourself, peeling away at your own essence, molding yourself into something quieter, smaller, something that wouldn't be so easy to leave. But no matter how much you changed, they never came back. The silence stretched long enough to become a truth you couldn't ignore. They were never coming back. Nights turned into battlegrounds, your own mind waging war against you. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by an endless reel of moments replaying over and over. Words left unsaid, wounds left unhealed, questions left unanswered. The world outside moved forward. But you were frozen in time, trapped between who you were and who you thought you had to become to be worthy of staying. But the cruelest part? The world didn't pause for your grief. The sun still rose, the birds still sang, people still laughed, worked, lived, as if your pain was invisible, as if your suffering was just another whisper lost in the wind. They told you to move on. They said, "It happens." They tossed around meaningless phrases, expecting them to be enough to stitch you back together. But they didn't understand. They didn't feel the weight of being discarded like an afterthought. They didn't hear the echoes of laughter in an empty space where once you belonged. They didn't wake up in a body that felt heavier with every passing day, carrying the ghosts of people who swore they would never leave. No, they didn't understand, and maybe they never will. But let me tell you something they never did. This pain, this gut-wrenching, soul-crushing, heartbreaking pain, it isn't the end of you. It is the beginning. The fire has already been lit, even if you don't feel it yet. The world thought it was burying you, but it didn't realize you were a seed. This darkness you are drowning in, it is not your grave. It is the soil from which you will rise. Every tear, every scream swallowed in silence, every night spent wide awake. These are the bricks that will build the foundation of something unstoppable. You see, they didn't just leave you behind, they freed you. Freed you from the chains of expectations, from the need for validation, from the illusion that you needed them to survive. Because now, you are forced to stand on your own. And standing alone, that is the first step to becoming something greater than they ever imagined. You may not see it yet. You may still be clenching your fists around memories that no longer serve you, still standing in the doorway of a past that will never open again. But soon you will understand. Soon you will realize that every ounce of pain was a blessing, because while they turned their backs on you, something else was happening. A fire was being forged inside of you, a hunger was being born, and soon, very soon, they won't just remember you. They will chase your shadow, desperate to catch a glimpse of what they once had but lost forever. This is not the end. This is where you begin. You remember the exact moment it happened, don't you? The moment everything the air felt colder, the world lost its color, and in the blink of an eye, the people you once trusted, the ones you thought would be there forever, vanished. No warning, no explanation, just silence. Deafening, all-consuming silence. You stood there watching them walk away, your heart hammering against your ribs, your mind racing with questions you knew would never be answered. Did they ever care? Were you just a placeholder? Was there anything you could have done differently? But there were no answers, only the echo of footsteps fading into the distance, leaving you stranded in the wreckage of something that once felt unbreakable. At first, you told yourself it was a misunderstanding, that maybe they needed space, that any moment now they'd turn back around, laughing, apologizing, telling you it was all a mistake. So you waited, you checked your phone, expecting a message that never came. You replayed old conversations, searching for clues, for some hidden sign that could explain why you were suddenly disposable. But the truth was far simpler. Far crueler. They were gone. And you were alone. But the real villains weren't just the ones who left. No, the real war began in your own mind. It started as a whisper, a seed of doubt planted deep in your subconscious. Maybe they left because you weren't enough. Maybe you were never enough. And like poison seeping through your veins, that whisper grew louder. It twisted its way into your thoughts, infecting everything you once believed about yourself. At first you fought it. You told yourself it wasn't true. You reminded yourself of all the ways you had been good to them, all the times you showed up, all the sacrifices you made. But self-doubt is relentless. It doesn't care about logic. It feeds on the cracks in your confidence, growing stronger with every unanswered text, every moment of silence. Then came the fear, the paralyzing, gut-wrenching fear that this wasn't just about them, that maybe, just maybe, this was a pattern. Maybe you were destined to be left behind. Maybe no one would ever truly stay. You began to see rejection everywhere, in every friendship, in every opportunity, in every reflection staring back at you in the mirror. And the shame? Oh, the shame was the worst of it, because it wasn't just about losing them, it was about losing yourself. You weren't just grieving them, you were grieving the version of you that believed you were worthy of love, of loyalty, of being chosen. That person felt like a stranger now, a ghost of someone who once dared to believe they mattered. The words they left unspoken filled the silence, but you didn't need them to say it out loud. You already knew. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. Nobody needs you. The lies burned themselves into your skin, branding you with a new identity. You stopped seeing yourself through your own eyes and started seeing yourself the way they did. Insignificant, forgettable, replaceable. You convinced yourself they had every reason to leave, that you had failed in some invisible, unforgivable way. You stopped fighting. You accepted it as truth. And so you began to shrink. You withdrew from the world, retreating into the shadows, hoping that if you made yourself small enough, quiet enough, unseen enough, maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't feel the pain. You stopped speaking up, stopped taking risks, stopped dreaming. Because what was the point? If the people who once claimed to love you could walk away so easily, then surely you weren't worth holding on to. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It was slow, like erosion, like water wearing down stone. Little by little, the fire inside you dimmed. The dreams you once held so tightly felt like distant memories, like stories that belonged to someone else, like justification. Your body died, somehow in a small little way. Goddamn wrong. I could reach two out. The things that used to bring you joy felt meaningless. Even the pain became dull, numbed by the weight of exhaustion. You almost gave up. Maybe you already did in a way. Maybe you stopped trying, stopped believing that things could be different. Maybe you sat in that darkness for so long that you started calling it home. Because after a while, the pain was no longer just something you felt. It was something you became. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. And solid ground, that means you can push off. You may not see it yet. You may still feel buried beneath the weight of their rejection, drowning in the lies they left behind. But I need you to listen closely, because this moment right here is the turning point. They thought they were leaving you behind. They thought they were walking away from someone weak. They thought you would fade into nothingness, forgotten, invisible. But they were wrong, because this pain, this wound they left in you, it's about to become the very thing that sets you free. The very thing that turns you into something they never saw coming. This is not where your story ends. This is where it truly begins. There comes a moment when pain stops feeling like a wound and starts feeling like a home, a place you retreat to, a space you exist in, not because you want to, but because you no longer know how to leave. You didn't choose this darkness, it chose you. And the worst part? You let it. Because somewhere along the way, you started believing the lies they left behind. They said you weren't enough, and so you became smaller. You started second-guessing every move, hesitating where you once moved with certainty. You silenced your own voice, thinking that maybe if you made yourself invisible, you wouldn't be a burden. The world taught you that love was conditional, that acceptance had a price, and you were terrified that if you misstepped, even slightly, you would lose even more. So you folded yourself into something palatable, something easier to digest, but no matter how much you shrank, they still walked away. They said you'd never make it, and so you stopped trying. What was the point? Every time you reached for something greater, every time you dared to dream, a voice in your head whispered that it was useless, that you'd fail, that you weren't built for success, for happiness, for anything beyond surviving in the shadows. And so you stayed where it was safe, where the walls were familiar, even if they were closing in. They said nobody needed you, and so you stopped believing you had value. You convinced yourself that you were expendable, that your presence in this world was insignificant. You saw people move on, live their lives, succeed, laugh, love, and none of it involved you. And that loneliness, it seeped into your bones, curled around your heart like vines, tightening with every passing day. You didn't just feel alone, you became it. And so the years passed. You stopped showing up for yourself. You stopped caring, not just about them, but about anything. Life became a monotonous cycle. Wake up, go through the motions, pretend, sleep, repeat. You smiled when expected, nodded when required, laughed at the right moments, though nothing was funny anymore. But inside, Inside you were screaming, dying a slow, quiet death, one that no one seemed to notice. Doubt became your closest companion. Maybe they were right. Maybe you weren't special. Maybe this emptiness, this nothingness, was all you were ever meant for. The idea of greatness, of success, of purpose, felt like a cruel joke, something for other people, the lucky ones, the chosen ones, not you. And your body, it felt it too, the weight of it all, the exhaustion that never went away, no matter how much you slept, the social credentials, a status symbol that didn't burden you. For everyone who sees it, the tightness in your chest, the racing thoughts, the nights where your mind refused to rest. You started losing yourself in distractions, anything to escape the storm inside, scrolling endlessly, watching people live lives you felt you'd never have, drowning in noise because the silence was unbearable. But nothing worked, because the truth was, you weren't just tired, you were drained, and no amount of sleep could fix a soul running on empty. So you withdrew. Maybe you stopped answering calls, stopped making plans, stopped trying. People stopped checking in, and a part of you was relieved. Because if no one asked how you were doing, then you wouldn't have to lie. You became a ghost in your own life, watching from the sidelines, detached, distant, fading. The world moved forward, and you remained stuck, buried under the weight of everything you carried. And that's when the hardest truth hit you. No one was coming to save you. No one was going to show up in the 11th hour, extend a hand and pull you out of this abyss. No one was going to fight your battles for you. No one was going to undo the past, rewrite the betrayal, fix the shattered pieces of your heart. You could scream at the universe, curse the heavens, cry out for help, but at the end of the day, this was your fight. And if you didn't stand up, if you didn't start clawing your way out, then this darkness would consume you whole. You would rot here, unless you decided otherwise. Because here's the thing, pain is a prison, but it's also a choice. And as much as you've suffered, as much as you've been broken, you still have one thing left, a choice. To stay here or to rise, to let this pain define you or to use it. Because while no one is coming to save you, that doesn't mean you can't save yourself. And it's subtle at first, like a flicker of light in a tunnel that's been dark for so long you forgot what brightness even looked like. It's not hope, not yet, but it's something, a whisper of a thought, a question that refuses to stay buried under the weight of your pain. What if this wasn't the end? For so long, you saw their departure as a death sentence, a mark of your unworthiness. You replayed their rejection like a broken record, convinced that if they left, if they abandoned you, it meant you weren't good enough. But now, a new thought takes root. A dangerous, rebellious thought. What if they didn't leave because you were weak? What if they left because they saw your strength before you did? And just like that, the illusion shatters, the spell breaks, and you finally see the truth for what it is. Rejection was never about you, it was about them. They didn't walk away because you lacked value. They walked away because they could no longer control you, because they sensed, even before you did, that you were meant for more than the life they wanted you to settle for, because they saw a spark in you. Something wild, something untamed, something dangerous to the small world they built for themselves. And deep down they knew, one day you would outgrow them. One day you would rise so high they wouldn't be able to reach you. So they left first. They discarded you before you could realize your own worth. They made you believe you were nothing so that you would never dare to become something. It made the paper turn into the newspaper. It made you trapped and swathed where their power didn't matter. And that realization, it ignites something inside of you. At first it's rage, not just at them, but at yourself. At the years you wasted believing their lies, at the way you let their absence define you, shrink you, make you question your own existence. You think back to all the times you sat in silence, hoping they'd return, begging the universe to give you back the very people who betrayed you. You feel the weight of every tear shed, every sleepless night, every moment you spent doubting the greatness buried inside you. And suddenly, you aren't sad anymore. You're done waiting, done grieving, done believing that their decision to leave had anything to do with your worth. Because now you understand. They weren't your loss, you were theirs. And the moment you accept that, everything changes. That fire inside you, the one they tried to extinguish, begins to burn again. The weight that's been holding you down, the chains of doubt and self-pity, snap one by one. You feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Power. Not just the idea of it, not just the distant hope of someday being strong. No, this is different. This is the knowing. The certainty that the version of you they abandoned is gone, and in their place, something new is rising. You reclaim yourself, piece by piece. You start pulling yourself out of the grave they left you in. You remember who you are, not who they told you to be, not the broken version of yourself that begged for their validation, the warrior that was always waiting beneath the surface. You start to see the potential in yourself that they feared. You start to realize that the same fire they tried to drown in doubt is now the very thing that will make you unstoppable. And so you make a decision. Never again. Never again will you let someone else's absence dictate your worth. Never again will you chase after people who made a choice to leave. Never again will you beg to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved by those who never deserved you in the first place. Because from this moment forward, you are done waiting for permission to be great. They turned their backs on you, and for a while you thought that meant you were nothing. But now you see the truth. They walked away, and now they'll have to watch as you rise. At first, the world didn't notice. They had already written you off. In their minds, you had disappeared, faded into nothingness, swallowed by the silence of your own suffering. They thought their absence broke you. They thought you would never recover, and for a while, maybe they were right. But something was happening in the darkness. You weren't just surviving anymore. You were rebuilding. Training in the shadows, you started from nothing. No applause, no encouragement, no hand to pull you up. Just you, your pain, and the cold realization that if you wanted to rise, you had to do it alone. So you did. While they were busy forgetting you were working, sharpening your mind, strengthening your body, rewiring your soul. You stopped looking for validation, stopped waiting for approval, stopped chasing ghosts that had no place in your future. Every day, brick by brick, you built a version of yourself they never saw coming. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't loud, it was slow, grueling, and lonely. But you didn't need an audience. You weren't doing this for them. You were doing this for the person you promised yourself you'd become. Every insult, every rejection, every failure, they became lessons. They became fuel. You no longer ran from the pain, you welcomed it. You embraced the fire, let it burn away the weakness, the doubt. The version of you that once needed their approval. Every sleepless night, every lonely morning, every moment of struggle became a reminder. You were not the same person they left behind. The pain that once consumed you now fueled you. And instead of breaking you, it became the very thing that made you unstoppable. You used to hide your wounds, ashamed of the marks left behind by betrayal, failure, and heartbreak. But now, they were badges of honor. Proof that you had walked through the fire and emerged on the other side. You were no longer a victim of your past. You had taken every scar, every tear, every ounce of suffering, and turned it into something unbreakable. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need an apology. You didn't need them to acknowledge the pain they caused, because now their absence was nothing more than a distant memory, a shadow of a past that no longer had power over you. There were no shortcuts, no easy paths, just relentless, ruthless, disciplined effort. Late nights, when the world was asleep, you were working. Early mornings, when others hit snooze, you were already... While they wasted time, you were sharpening your skills, perfecting your craft, pushing yourself beyond limits you once thought were impossible. You made sacrifices. You cut out distractions. You stopped chasing temporary pleasures and started chasing something real. Excellence, mastery, greatness. This wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. This was about proving yourself right. It didn't matter what path you chose, business, art, fitness, mindset. Whatever it was, you poured yourself into it with an obsession they would never understand. You refused to be mediocre. You refused to settle. Every day, you got better, smarter, stronger, more resilient. And with every small victory, every quiet success, you felt it. The power returning to you, the confidence, the fire, the knowing that you were building something unstoppable. By the time they noticed, it was already too late. The version of you they abandoned, that person was gone. In their place stood someone unrecognizable, someone sharper, wiser, untouchable, someone who no longer needed them. And soon, they wouldn't just notice you, they would chase your shadow. The world never stopped spinning, and neither do you. While they went about their lives, convinced you were nothing more than a fading memory you were silently building. Every rejection, every failure, every struggle was shaping you into something they would never recognize. You've gone quiet, and the silence is powerful. Now, the moment has come when everything begins to shift. It starts small. At first, it's just a glance. A comment here, a casual inquiry there. And well, the ones who once dismissed you as insignificant are beginning to look your way. They've heard rumors, seen the success in passing, felt the ripple of your transformation. And something inside them stirs. A shift in the balance of power that they can't quite understand. They can no longer ignore you. Because now you're the one who commands attention. The tables have turned. You're no longer the one waiting for someone to notice you. Now they're the ones trying to get your attention. They begin watching from the sidelines, trying to make sense of who you've become, Their eyes follow you, though they don't yet understand that this is no longer a game they can play. It doesn't take long before the whispers start. The same voices that once doubted you, that once ridiculed your dreams, are now questioning themselves. They start asking about you, curious about the quiet force that's been steadily rising in the background. Who are they now? What have they become? And more importantly, how did they do it? The very people who discarded you now can't stop talking about you. They don't understand how someone who was once invisible, someone they thought they could walk away from, has now become a force to be reckoned with. But you don't need to say a word. The silence speaks louder than any words ever could. They used to have the power. They used to hold the keys to your worth. Their approval was all you sought. But now they're the ones chasing your name. They're the ones hoping for a moment of your attention, a sliver of your time. They want to be a part of your world, to bask in the glow of your success, to feel the power they thought they could break. But it's too late. You've learned a truth they can't understand. Their absence didn't cripple you. It forged you into something stronger. And now you're the one calling the shots. Behind their smiles, behind their facades, there's something deeper: regret. They might not admit it to themselves yet, but they regret leaving. They regret not recognizing your potential when they had the chance. They regret walking away when they should have stood by you. Because now they see what you've become, and they can't ignore it. They see the person they once dismissed, now standing tall. And they feel the weight of their choices. They wish they had stayed, had been there to support you when you needed it most. But now they're left in the dust, watching from afar, powerless to change the past. And here's the painful truth for them. They don't regret leaving you. They regret that you became something greater without them. They thought they were the ones who would rise, the ones who would be remembered. But instead, it's you. You are the one they will never forget. They can't understand it. They don't know how to reconcile the person they abandoned with the unstoppable force standing before them. Because they never realize how much power you were hiding, and now the power dynamic has shifted. They will spend the rest of their lives chasing your shadow, wondering how they missed what was right in front of them. Here's the most powerful truth. You never needed to say a word. You never needed to confront them, to tell them how they hurt you, how they abandoned you, because the most potent response is never found in anger or words, because it's found in success. And that's exactly what you've built. A success they can never take from you. So let them talk, let them wonder, let them chase your name, because while they were busy watching, you kept moving forward, you kept growing, you kept rising, and that, my friend, is the sweetest revenge. You've come so far, and the world is starting to take notice. The whispers that once spoke of your failure have turned into murmurs of awe, admiration, and even envy. The very people who once abandoned you are now looking for a way back into your life. They want something, access, a connection, a piece of the success they thought they could walk away from. Finding out those secrets, you named them. Mind and body, what you want might call the absolute success in silence they call a partial suicility that deceives themselves. You want to be like them? Well, but you've changed. And now it's time to test everything you've learned. They start showing up again. In small ways at first. A message here, a casual "how have you been" there. It's subtle, but you can feel it. The energy has shifted. They want something from you. The same people who once shut the door in your face, who turned their backs and watched you fall, now want to be a part of your rise. They want access to your success, to the connections you've built, to the status you've earned with nothing but sweat and tears. They want to be around you, but not for the reasons you deserve. They don't want to help you. They want to take something from you. You see it now. You see through the act, through the empty words they throw at you. And the question lingers in the air. Will you let them in again? Here's the test. Will you allow them to re-enter your life, or will you keep moving forward? There's a temptation to let them back in, to forgive, to give them another chance, as if they're worthy of the person you've become. After all, they're trying to apologize, right? They're showing interest again, so maybe they've changed. But deep down, you know. You know who they were when you needed them. You know the pain they caused. You know the betrayal that still stings beneath the surface. And you also know who you've become. You're no longer that person who relied on their approval. You're no longer the one who was defined by their rejection. You are a force, a power that doesn't need anyone else's validation. So will you let them back in, or will you keep walking forward without looking back? The truth is harsh, but necessary. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some people were meant to walk out of your life so that you could walk into your future. They served a purpose, but it wasn't the purpose you thought. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they couldn't see your potential. And now that you've reached that potential, they want to be a part of it. But the reality is, they never will be. They will always be a reminder of what you once needed. But now you don't need them. And understanding that is the power you've gained. You don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. You don't need them to validate your success. Your success is your own. So, what's your move? It's not revenge. It's not anger. It's not even a moment of satisfaction watching them squirm as they beg for your time and attention. No, the ultimate power move is the one they will never understand. It's progress. It's unstoppable, undeniable progress. You keep moving forward, you keep rising, you keep becoming the person they never thought you'd be, the person they could never be, the person who no longer needs them or anyone else. You don't waste your time with grudges or second chances. You don't get caught in the trap of proving something to those who left. You just keep moving, and with every step, they'll see it. They'll see you soar higher, further, faster than they could ever imagine, and that is the ultimate revenge. Now you understand. You don't need anyone's approval, not theirs, not anyone else's. The world doesn't get to define you anymore. You create your own destiny. Every choice you make is yours. Every success is yours. Every failure is yours too. And you own it, because now you are the creator of your own story. They thought they could break you. They thought they could leave you behind. But now, they chase your shadow, and you don't even have to look back, because the only thing that matters now is the journey ahead, and no one, nothing, will stop you from walking it. You stand at the peak now, looking out at the vastness of what you've overcome. There was a time when you thought the climb would break you, a time when the weight of abandonment, the silence of rejection, and the crushing loneliness felt like it would bury you beneath it all. But now, as you stand at the summit, you see the truth of your journey, from abandoned to unstoppable, from lost to found, from invisible to untouchable. Look at where you are now. Think about the distance you've traveled, the battles you've fought, the scars you carry, and the moments of despair you overcame. The people who left you behind, they're nowhere to be found in this new world you've built for yourself. Do I get to keep any of that for myself? The ones who told you that you weren't enough, that you'd never make it. They're lost in the noise of your success, unable to even comprehend what you've become. You've climbed this mountain alone, and that in itself is the greatest victory. The path wasn't easy, it never is. The grind, the sacrifices, the pain, all of it was necessary. You had to walk through the fire to come out on the other side stronger, and you just did a bunch of it. You had to face the darkest parts of yourself, the doubts, the fears, the insecurities. And now you stand tall, unbreakable, looking down at the road that once seemed impossible to travel. You've earned every step, every inch of this victory. And now you understand. The truth you always knew but couldn't see. You were never weak. You were simply waiting for the right moment to awaken. They thought they could define you. They thought their rejection, their abandonment could diminish you. But what they didn't realize was that you weren't meant to fall. You were meant to rise. Everything you went through, the pain, the struggle, the loneliness, was simply the fuel for the fire that was always inside you. You were always strong enough, always powerful enough. You just had to find it. And now that you have, nothing can stop you. So stand tall, because this is your moment. Let them watch, let them talk, let them chase your shadow, because now you are untouchable. You are unstoppable. You are free. You've proven to yourself that you don't need anyone's approval. You don't need their validation, their love, their attention. You are your own source of strength. You are the creator of your own destiny. And the world is now yours for the taking. So let them chase your shadow. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them question everything they thought they knew about you, because you've already won.